right, man. Well, first of all, I want to say what an honor it is to be invited on the show. And I followed your stuff for a while, man, and it's an honor to be invited by Justin Bieber to I'm just kidding, man. But
I'll take that
no,
one.
all right. Shots fired. No, no. But for real, let me tell you guys a little bit about me, who I am. My name is Sumedh Chatterjee. I have a master's in applied positive psychology and coaching psychology. I am a peak performance coach, and the idea of flow just fascinates me. And I just love the idea of being creative and that's a question that I've been kind of longing for my whole life. Like, what is that inspiration? And just really being able to be in the moment and what it really means to be a person who is balanced in life. So, I mean, who I am, it has always been constantly changing. You know, I feel identity is one of those things. Like, I'm not the same person I was yesterday. So that's a tough question
Yes.
to answer. But to be real with you, I am a practicing coach. I am a person who likes to add value, and I'm a type of person that when I see an opportunity, I try and always hop on that opportunity. So it's good to be here, man.
Yeah, you hopped on this opportunity, and I'm excited too because exactly what you're talking about. I feel like we're going to dig into some juicy conversation here in terms of what inspires us, what lights us up, and how does that stay in rhythm? How does that stay in rhythm in terms of
Right.
flow? And so I mentioned on the show that flow is quite a buzzword going around, and you hear it a lot. And I just would love to get your little take, your little breakdown on what the heck flow is
Yeah.
and what is it?
Jackson, you know
Why
what?
is it relevant?
I have to stop you for just a second because I see my clock saying 444, and that's my freaking lucky number, bro. So right now I can tell we're already in flow.
I
The
love
synchronicity
it.
right now, man. Oh man. And this clock
Excellent,
is broken.
excellent.
It's not even real, Anyway, so going off that, sorry, if you could just repeat the last thing that you were saying.
Yeah, I was just basically talking about
Being a
how
buzz,
flow is such a buzzword, and I would
right?
love
Yeah.
your take on it and why it's relevant to people to even consider in their lives. And when, because some people have heard it and probably don't resonate or don't relate to it. They're like, yeah, I get the concept, but it's not like a felt experience.
Right, and the reason is that it's so subjective to everybody that the way that somebody gets into flow is different for different people. Like somebody who's a surfer can't get into the same kind of flow in the basketball field. So the thing is,
Mm,
you have to figure out what is flow to you. And I think flow is like one of these terms we hear, we think it's really esoteric, like, oh, go with the flow, man. Or like we
yeah.
think that it's a type of thing that is associated with like just very mystical experiences, and that stuff is there too. But there's a real
Hmm.
science behind it, and there's a real application to it based on. I don't know if you've heard of the book Flow by Csikszentmihalyi. He's a
Yes.
Hungarian psychologist, and so from that basis, there's so much that it can be for people. It can be the idea of peak performance and optimal experience, but it can also be something that is more to how to heighten one's creativity and how to be more of you, if that makes any sense. It
Yeah.
allows us to become the greater part of ourselves and allow us to enjoy the process so that we can stay there. And so I think flow for me has been more of an exploration process. And that's really why I have delved deep into it so that I could allow myself to get into flow by doing little rituals here and there, but also allowing others to share in on that flow and actually be able to teach it to a level where it can be applied.
Mm, this is so fascinating because you mentioned some big things there. One aspect being, okay, this is heightened levels of creativity. This is you being your absolute self, coming forth like your best self. And, to me, that's just like super intriguing. I'm like, yes, 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 tell me more. And then it's like, then you're able to break that down and apply it through like rituals and create a process almost that can get
Right.
people into flow. And we talked about this difference between, you know, flow in the water that a surfer might take on versus flow, say, a rapper might do in a battle, or, you know, flow on a basketball court even. So I'm curious.
Right, and
I'm curious.
they call it different things too. You know, like jazz musicians say being in the pocket, right?
Okay.
Athletes say I'm in the zone, man. I'm in the zone, right? And so everybody has their own way of like sort of experiencing and defining it. Flow is just the scientific term
Right.
that people have gone into because as people were describing this weird experience, they were all using that word. Like, it's like I'm in flow. And so
Mm.
as it was said so many times during the qualitative research, like everybody was using that term, it became the term over
Okay.
time
Okay.
that people started to use. Yeah.
Became the collective term. Excellent. And so my question to you, two questions. One, can anyone access flow? Can anyone have, you know, have flow in their life? Like, can this be applied to business, for example, or to like an everyday thing of getting out of bed and going, you know what, I feel like today's really flowing. I just want to know, is that possible for everyone to access, or is there some sort of criteria? Do you have to be some extreme sport athlete? Do you have to, you know what I mean? You have to be a chef in the kitchen that's trained for 20 years before you can tap into flow. Can a
Right.
beginner show up and get
I
into
believe
flow?
that I believe that anybody can get into flow, but it takes practice. It takes mastery over the craft because as you become more aware of what your passion is and what you're good at, there are easier ways to get into flow like that. There's also something called microflow. Microflow is day to day. What can you do? How can you enjoy this task more? This is stuff that can be applied in schools. This is stuff that you can use in your business to optimize your business. And ultimately, it can be used anywhere. These are practical steps that you can take where you can apply it to any situation. And that's why it's more of a lifestyle, it's more of a life mastery rather than a thing that, let's say, you turn on and off. It should become this thing which is more long term because flow is this thing that's temporary essentially. It's this feeling that we have and then it goes away. Now what scientists are trying to do is they're trying to figure out a way to maintain it in the longer term. How can somebody get to that high level of skill and really get to that space where flow is being used, not so much just like, oh, it's just one of those things that, oh, time to get into flow again, but more like it is the norm. It is the second nature. You walk out of your room already feeling it instead, and that takes time.
Whoa,
That takes practice. That takes
whoa.
rituals. So,
Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. This second nature, like that sounds so fucking exciting. Yeah, I'm like, I'm fired up right now. You got me revved up because if that's a potential that this could
I'm
be,
glad.
this could be second nature, then we're onto some pretty amazing, cunning scientific research here that we can make that into second nature. And so I want to
Right.
inquire about microflow and how people can begin to access or be aware of microflow and start activating that in their life.
Absolutely right. One of the things is definitely mindfulness. When I made this cup of tea, for instance, I was extremely mindful of the tea bag. I was extremely mindful of the heat that I had it turned to. And it's about savoring the experience more than actually having it escape. Because flow is one of these things that can escape us very easily. It's like we have that feeling, we can associate it to the feeling, but then it goes away. It's like if you have let's say you have one of those pasta strainers and you try to put water in it. The water is going to drip down, right? Because flow is like that now. It's temporary. Now what we want to do is try to figure out a way to make it a cup or a chalice or a goblet where we can
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
fill the water and then it overflows and actually it impacts the people around us. Our flow is actually being more of a contagious type of thing, right? Like our flow from this video, people are watching it, they're like, wow, these two guys, they're in flow, they're going back and forth. So
Mm,
I think in terms of microflow mindfulness, definitely one of those top things. The second thing I would say is try to have a control of the environment. So this is one of the things that I've noticed. When you have a control of the environment that you have, and this is kind of a little bit of a paradox because you're losing yourself in flow, but you're
right.
also gaining, you're finding yourself and you're finding a control. What are your limits? And so to be able to figure out a way, how can I control this task? How can I measure this task? How do I know that I'm improving? Every time I step into the recording booth, how do I know that I'm getting better? What is the metric? Like, do I hear my producer saying, awesome? All right, let me count the number of awesomes, right? Like figure out a way to maintain that flow and get into micro flow by just allowing yourself to be this thing where you practice it and just allow yourself to be in it. A lot of the times we resist flow when it comes up because it's too hard. It's like this feeling of struggle in the beginning. You don't really want to do it. And so another aspect of flow, and I guess we'll get more into that later, tell you some of the tips to get into flow. But in terms of micro flow, I would just say mindfulness is the place to start, because it really is one of those things that, I mean, being really able to put yourself into the present moment. I think, you know, anxiety is like temporal dislocation. It's like time travel, right? We worry about the future that's not going to happen. That's an illusion. Or we're in the past thinking about, oh, that thing happened to me, and it plays like a broken record. So how can we put ourselves right now? And that's where flow comes alive. It comes alive in the present moment. So I think in terms of microflow, just setting that fire to ignite, we have to allow ourselves to be more mindful and engage more as a population.
As a population. Fantastic. Really, like, that's an extraordinary piece of information there. And anyone that's watching the replay, just put in what you'll be more mindful and present of in your day-to-day living, that you can create that micro flow. You know, Sumedh talked about just in his tea, the way he made his tea and the temperature of the water and how present he was in the experience of that. And that would have really cultivated this micro flow experience. And to me, I noticed that too in my day-to-day, you know, even the way I cook or the way I show up when it comes to just like being outside or going for a walk. You can really immerse yourself in such a present experience that it feels, and this is where I'm curious now, talking about ways to activate flow, where it almost feels like something's taking over and you want to be, because you mentioned it might be even, most people find it difficult to get in flow, or they resist, getting into flow. It's probably the better word. So let's naturally marry into that resistance and bring light to that. Because I was unaware that was a kind of like an initiation into flow. It really was. Like for me, I didn't see resistance as a little thing that you could where most of the blockages is when it comes to flow. And I could be wrong here.
Right, and it comes down to the flow cycle. I mean, the first thing that kicks off flow is that sense of struggle. And a lot of people don't realize that. They think that, oh, it's just like a natural process. But there is this sense of challenge associated with it. And not too much challenge, because then you're going to be like, man, I give up. This is too hard. But not too less challenge where you're like, man, this is too easy. I got this. Right? This is boring.
Yeah.
Just the right level of challenge that puts you in that zone, I think, is really crucial in terms of flow. And this is why people are addicted to video games, right? They have a high skill level and they have a pretty good level of challenge throughout getting through levels, right? And so people are just addicted to Fortnite and things like that. Like, I see it all the time. Like, all my friends, right, are playing this game, and that's because they're in flow.
Shit! Wow, I never even clicked the two together. The people behind these games have designed this to get their players into flow, into states of flow, based on the level of challenge, based on the level of skill, and that level of engagement.
And that's why, exactly, man, and that's why they call it autotelic, which means that it means that it is a benefit by itself. Like, getting into flow is the payoff. It's the byproduct of you doing it. So I think that's like fascinating. It's like,
it's fascinating me right now. Because does that mean then that the outcome isn't necessarily your benefit then? It's more just being in the state of flow. Like, it's like when you're in a state of flow, you're not necessarily hooked on the outcome. It's like, you know, you just make that game-winning shot, or you hit that crossover or whatever it is. Like, but you didn't realize, like, it wasn't like the intention to go in, like, I gotta hit I gotta hit this game-winning shot. It's just like it happened, right? It's more about the being in the flow part. And what was the term you used for it?
Autotelic, yeah. It's it's
Amazing.
like as if people, I mean, can reach this state through like mind-altering drugs, or they can reach this state through meditation. They can reach this state through high-level performance in terms of sports. But really getting into the concept, the basis of flow is it shuts off the prefrontal cortex, right? So basically, for a couple minutes, you don't have that inner voice telling you, oh, you can't do it, or it just shuts that off completely. So you have a sense of time loss. It's like time doesn't even matter to you at that point. It's just you're so in the moment that it slows down for you. And so you're able to enjoy and experience it, but it feels super like almost fast. That's the paradox of it. It's like, wow, that happened. Like I just made the game winning shot. But in the moment where it was happening, like time slowed down for you, right? So it's like the sense that, wow, like there's a real time distortion when it comes down to flow. And I think that's where people really miss out on that aspect of it a lot, because the sense of outcome, right? It's important to have an outcome in mind. And I'm sure that a lot of people know, like, okay, if I focus on let's say the end of the finish line, that's going to get me there a lot faster. And so I'm being able to get into flow more if I just laser focus on that one thing. However, actually losing yourself in the moment of doing it and allowing yourself for it to take place. Because the thing is, flow is one of the ways towards happiness. And this is something that Csikszentmihalyi explains, that it's like the Tao, right? It's a lifestyle. It's a way towards the happiness. And so I think that it's really just one of those crucial things that people haven't really figured out yet, because there's so less scientific research on it. Like a lot of research is based on like people in these death-defying like scientific, like not scientific,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's like all of these people who
Yeah.
are like doing stuff off ski ramps,
Red Bull superstars, like jumping out of
yeah, like
planes in the
motorcycle
highest
man.
wave. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Get
So
it,
it's
man.
more of that level of peak performance, but everyday flow is something that people can really benefit from. Yeah, for sure.
Especially when you talk about happiness in relationship to that, which really leads me to my next question about, is there a point where how much of your happiness is banking on that flow? As in, okay, I know I've gotten into flow a few times before, but suddenly if I don't get into flow, it's pretty like, how do I compare? Like it's pretty shit experience if I'm not in flow, right? So does this level of disappointment or unhappiness spark from not being able to always get into flow, or like having such an amazing flow state experience, whether that was, in a sport or as a musician or whatever it is, that you come addicted to that feeling that you're like, oh, you feel deprived of that, or that no other experience can compare until you get back to there. Is that a dangerous territory to play in? Is that legit like a thing that happens to people?
I mean, sure. I mean, you've seen it with a lot of athletes and a lot of competitors and things like that. They let their passion become an obsession. And that's where we need to draw the line, is it becoming something that is impacting my relationship with other people? Is it becoming something that is harmful to me? Because sometimes when you get into so much flow, you're like, I lost track of time. Oh, snap, I forgot to make dinner for myself. Like, you still need to be able to have it, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that loss of time,
Yeah.
that being in flow is important. But also being aware and mindful that, okay, we are on this time span. There is a thing called reality. I do have to show up to my 9 to 5, perhaps, if you have a job, all right? So it's like really figuring out those aspects and figuring out the logistics. But also, I feel that and this is just my take on it, but I think that flow is really crucial towards happiness, because it's just doing what you love, right? And once you figure out, like, this is a task that is enjoyable for me, that I can immerse myself in. And so that fills, there's no hole to fill, obviously, but it's a sense of fulfillment. It's a sense of long-lasting fulfillment. Like, I accomplished this thing, and sure, we can compare it to that one time, like, oh my God, that one event I did where I crushed it. I was on stage. We can always compare it to that, or we can compare it to, let's see what I can do. Let's see what are the choices that are there for me to get into flow. So a lot of it is to do with the mindset too, because if we keep comparing ourselves to the past self and like how we lost or the flow isn't there, then that actually stops the flow.
Yeah, because
Right?
you mentioned flow already, that it's a presence thing. It's a presence thing. So if you're comparing yourself to the past, you're already like canceling out the flow effect, so to speak. I like it. Exactly. I can dig that. I can dig that. And so for those that are you know, have had a taste of flow, or you mentioned it, like it's a fulfillment. It's a fulfillment in that it's makes you happy because you love what you're doing in flow. I'm just curious how we can get people that haven't quite found that I love what to do, or haven't quite found that flow. What's a way that, because you mentioned timelessness, and you know, I'm just being on the other end of the spectrum, thinking, you know, there could be those cases out there where there aren't people that have experienced that to a great degree. And this is where it comes back to our topic, is like, how can we activate that in their lives just a little more, like crank up the dial of flow so they can open up their awareness to it and have that experience. Because the absolute like game-changing moment for me to hear would be to have someone come on and comment and say, thank you so much to you two, because I got to experience something like that, and drop a message in about that. That would be so rewarding. So I would love to drop in a little bit of info, and I know you're the guy to talk to ask about this.
All right. So the first thing I would tell you, if you're listening, is figure out the balance of what gets you into flow. Where's that sweet spot for you? Right? What I mean by this is flow happens between boredom and between overwhelm. You don't want to be overwhelmed. You don't want to be bored. Find that middle ground. Discipline and surrender. Surrender yourself to the moment, but also keep that discipline, that you, not too much discipline, order and chaos, right? You want to have that level of balance to really get into that flow state. Control and arousal. You want to have a feeling of control, but also a feeling of like being turned on by this thing, being like in this phase where you're actually activated and all your senses are activated, right? And so it really comes down to the sense of balance. Also challenge and skill, right? It's all of these things. And and so I would just say the first thing is to figure out that balance. Where is that sweet spot for you? And when are you getting into flow? I mean, make a mental note of that, because it's really crucial of noticing, like, where is it that I best get into flow? And the first thing I would say is this is really cheesy, but follow your bliss, like follow your excitement, like follow what is actually like exciting you and you find very enjoyable, not in the short term, because we have that sense of instantaneous like joy and then it just fades away. Like we live in a culture with instantaneous gratification, right? Give this video a thumbs up.
Yeah, exactly.
but the long term, right? The eudaimonic fulfillment. Eudaimonia is a Greek word, which is another word for flourishing or fulfillment. So it's the long-term happiness. It's that feeling that I accomplished something. I have a family. I have something that I built. I built a kingdom for myself almost. So it's that really that long-term phase. Yeah. And I think that in terms of flow, there's this sense of, so in terms of that, just following your excitement, like following your bliss, like wake up and then be like, what am I motivated to do right now? If it's just like, man, I just want to roll over and watch some TV, all right, do that. And then while you're in it, now what are you excited to do?
Exactly.
Right?
There you go.
And so you have to kind of build this momentum up. It can't be like, I'm in flow state today, boys. You have to build it up, right?
Wake up, let's go.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm sure we've been there because we practice it, right? We practice like actually changing our state, changing our physiology, changing our mindset. Like I love to wake up and just visualize, like, man, what does my best self think? Like, what is he doing right now? How can I emulate that? Right?
Yeah, true.
Visualization is another key one, I think, to get into flow. Yeah,
I resonate with that tremendously. And I just wanted to add in, because that was such a gemstone that you dropped about, even if it was get up, hold on, what do I feel excited to do today? Roll over, watch some TV, and maybe it's an anime or whatever it is for you. But actually, there's an excitement in there that can just begin to build that momentum, and that's just like,
Yeah,
my mind is, yeah, my mind is blown, because I was kind of under the perception, and I'm glad that we had this conversation tonight, because now I'm re-educating myself that it is kind of one of those things. It's like, oh, you know what, I'm just going to tap into it now, or this and that. But I didn't even consider the fact that you could get into this through this momentum side of things, even through a TV show.
Like a stacking process. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Fucking brilliant.
I'm glad.
Am I allowed to swear on my own show? I want one of those, like,
your show, man. Go for
it. Excellent. Right. Yeah, exactly. Get some bleeps in here on the editing, post processing. Cool. Yeah, so that was just tremendous, and to think that it's the stacking effect. So it leads me to kind of one of my final questions, which is, what's some of the things for you? You talked about changing your physiology and visualization. And I know visualization is such a key thing, but there's another aspect of visualization that I've been experimenting with, where instead of making it so 2D, make it more 3D, like the visualization aspect of 3D, the felt sense of that, which has been a game changer for me personally.
Right?
Even 4D.
Almost
okay,
4D.
Introduce me. Yeah. Wow, that's in like high definition.
Right, it's 4K. Yeah, make it like 4D, 4K for you, because the thing is, you want to be able to feel it, right? When you're visualizing, when you're trying to manifest something, when you're trying to make the ethereal into the material. All right, we're already rapping shit. Okay. The ethereal into the imperial. Make it too material.
Yeah.
But yeah, eat it up like cereal.
Okay, you're getting me too, like, ready to go. Like, let's go.
Let's drop a beat.
Yeah, acapella.
No, where was?
4D.
As you're visualizing, right? You want to be able to use all of your senses. So the sense of smell, like if you're in Hawaii, right? You want to smell that coconut breeze, the palm trees. You want to imagine in your mind's eye, okay, what is here right now? There are hula girls over there. Okay, here I am sitting down. I'm drinking my cocktail. All right, I have my hands right here. What am I feeling? I'm feeling the sand on my toes.
Yeah.
So you really have to get able to use all of your senses and not just the visual one. Something that I've mentioned in one of my videos is that you want to sometimes neglect your top sense to be able to tap into other ones. So try watching a movie just with your eyes closed and see what imagination comes up.
Shit, yeah. That's a great take home. Anyone that's watching the replay on this, please do that. I'm gonna do that tonight when I watch some anime. Yeah, I'm gonna close my eyes and use my other senses to engage. And it's so true in visualization. You're at that Hawaii. Me, it's Kauai, because I love Kauai. And it's like, okay, cool. Is it the sun's rays kissing your face, and you can feel the heat intensity there? And is it the sound and the smell? And it's like, how many senses can I engage here? And what take home can I have in that felt sense experience where, it feels like the real deal. Your subconscious, your body's not going to tell the difference. It's going to be like, cool, we're in Kauai High. And like, to wake up out of that state or out of that visualization, it's a fucking incredible flooded feeling that's coming through every cell of your body, as if it just happened.
Exactly. And the fact that we can tap into it at any time, man. This is like something that is at our disposal. Like, our imagination is this incredible state. And I'm sure there's so many books out there that explain this concept, but you really have to try it out for yourself, guys. Like, you can't just take what people are telling you. Like, actually, the power comes from doing it. So experiment with what kind of visualization works for you. I think really that is the key to it. Being able to, what is my strongest sense? Oh, maybe it's hearing. Like, let me hear some beach noises. You know what I'm saying? Let me get into that groove a little bit. So allow yourself to really experiment. Go through that trial and error process. I think that's key.
That is key. Awesome. And the final question I got to wrap up the show is, I would love to hear what gets you into flow. Like, what are some of your favorite flow states? You know, is that through writing or drawing? Is it through making videos? Like, what's like your
Yes.
activation or your momentum stack? I know you mentioned T on a micro flow level, but yeah, what's some of the bigger flow levels? Is that correct term, like micro flow, and then what's the other? Just flow?
Just flow. I don't know if macro flow is the right way, because I mean, flow is what it is. On the grander scheme of things, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, flow. What gets me into flow? That's a really, really good question. A lot of things, man. Like, this is what I constantly practice. So this is like something that I've made into a ritual for myself. I practice it every day. I go for a walk, shuts off that, they call it transient hypofrontality, again, like shutting off of the prefrontal cortex, right? The low grade flow, when you're walking, when you're working out, when you're exercising, you just get into this space where you lose sense of time. I like to walk. I like to go to the gym. You know, I enjoy recording music and being in that zone in the studio, or just when I'm recording music by myself or freestyle rapping. That's one of my key ones. Editing videos. Sometimes you lose yourself while doing that. I feel like I get into flow when I just start ecstatic dancing, man. And I know you have the same concept, just like not caring what people are thinking. Like, imagine like there's no one in the room and it's just you, and you're just releasing all of your trapped emotions and you're just going at it. Really, that's one of the key flow ones for myself. Like really good music and being able to let loose like that. Another way to get into flow for me would be to get on stage. Sometimes when I get on stage, or when I'm doing a speech, or when I'm performing on stage, like I just lose that sense of time, or it's just like me, and even the audience doesn't even matter. I lose the audience at times, I'm just on stage.
Audience is checking in
totally
like, yo, where is this dude going? Like, is he talking to us anymore?
Is he with us?
Man.
Hello, Sue.
Yeah. I love it. I absolutely love that. Like, all the things that you mentioned about flow and what gets you into flow are fucking so similar to me. It's ridiculous. And I love that. I really do. It's a great aspect. It's a great outlet, and it should be a must in people's lives. It really should be like a ritual or some sort of activation of it that they have a good felt sense of, that they know is got its back. Like, flow's got my back in a way. It's like, I can get there. I can be a part of that experience and have that incorporated in my day to contribute to my happiness, to contribute to my fulfillment, as well as overflow and push that, with that overflow out into others and impact others in that way. And the last thing I would love that you could share with everyone that's going to be watching the replay and everyone that's jumping on board is just what we can do to check out more of your work, and just find you, and people that are more curious about asking more questions about flow or working with you or any of that sort of thing. Where can we get in contact? And I know I'll put a description up, edit the description and put more of your details in the bio.
Great, man. So project that I'm working on currently is the Flow Zone Academy. I really want to create a community of people that can tap into flow and peak performance, and just helping each other out through the process. I mean, it is a coaching program for them, but it is to create a group of people. It's to create a community that can support each other to get into flow and stay there. So that's a really great benefit. I think everybody should just definitely check it out, get on a call with me, and figure out if it's right for you. And that is FLOZONE. So Flow Zone Academy. And you can look that up on Facebook right now. We're still in the process of creating a lead page for it. And also, just hit me up either on Instagram. I'm always active on Instagram. So if you just shoot me a message on Instagram, it's that Splash Life all together. So THAT splash, right? SPLASH life all together. That's Splash Life on Instagram. And also check out my website. I mean, www.coachingwithsume, that's SUME.com.
Excellent.
So
thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll put that
all
three of that. We'll put that in the bio for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I want to, game changers like yourself, we want to share the message that you have to share, because the whole theme of this show is changing the way you can play life. And I know for a fact, through felt experience, through my own experience, that flow is definitely changing the way I play life. So someone like yourself to come on board, I feel super honored to have you on board and share your wisdom, which I know we were just scratching the surface on. So I appreciate that, brother. I
Yeah.
really do.
Appreciate you, man. Definitely. Thanks for inviting me. I love all the other episodes as well. I tune in all the time. You have some great guests on here, and I'm just honored to be one of those guests. So thanks for having me, man. May the
You're
flow
welcome.
be with you.
With you. Yes, excellent. We'll finish on that. Cheers, brother.